Hello, everybody. Today I'm speaking to Deirdre, Caren, founder and director of Agora Insights. Welcome, Deirdre. Thank you
Welcome.
for
Thank you.
taking time and speaking with us today. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you. Great
Awesome.
meeting you, and it's great joining you on this platform. You're doing a good job.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate you, taking time and coming to talk to us today. Can you start talking more about Agora Insights, that's the company that you're currently associated with, and your role there?
Okay, so I started Agora Insights 4.5 years ago. And the idea was I really wanted to just help people understand what the role of business analyst and business architect is. So I've been quite fortunate to have been in the industry for quite some time now. And while working on projects, you can see, especially new BAs or people who haven't received adequate training, they don't have a lot of confidence in their job, and they're always questioning if they're doing the right thing. And so what I started doing in the workplace was I started training other people. I just did it. It wasn't this big plan. And they kept saying to me, "Oh, we've learned a lot from you." And so that's basically, I decided I need to start a company and do what I'm good at, and that is help other people figure out what this is all about.
Great, awesome. Looking at your career trajectory, you've had some great success working in corporations. I think you sort of touched upon this point, but I want to really understand what are some of the specific things that motivated you to shift your career from where you were to the mentoring services and providing consultation to analysts and architects around the world?
Mm-hmm. Well, working in projects can have good days and bad days. And um, there are times where you think, do I really want to do another project? And as I mentioned, I've been working for several years, doing multiple roles from consulting, change management, business analyst, business architect. And I thought, what is it that I love doing the most? And as I mentioned, working with the other teams and just helping and supporting them, but focusing on the skill, because there's a big difference between looking at somebody who's motivating people and somebody who wants to empower people to actually be able to do their job and have confidence. So like I said, for me, there was a clear shift. I am so appreciative of my experience because there isn't a BA that I talk to that doesn't understand this. And I think that is really such a advantage, as a mentor and a coach. I don't just give you ideas that what you can work with. I understand the reality of the pain that those roles go through in real life projects. And so when I do train, we actually talk about real things. We don't just talk about, the theory of the Babcock guide. We talk about what would this mean and what is Babcock trying to tell you. So although we can't go into detail around every single aspect of business analysts and everyone's experience, we can provide the clarity that a lot of people are missing in their normal workspace.
Great. Your expertise is training, coaching, mentoring business analysts and architects. Would love to hear the difference between the two roles, because I feel like sometimes there's going to be a mix up in how people think about what is the role of a business analyst and mix that up with the business architect. So if you were to define these two roles and the differentiating factors, what would those highlights be?
So I'm going to use like a metaphor, simile, whatever you want to, because it's really hard. I always say when people say I'm a business analyst, your mom goes, "Oh, She does computer stuff. um, so, the role is quite hard to define. And the same with business architecture, I suppose. It's really understanding what do people think of it, because you end up having to try explain it all the time. So quite simply, the difference between the role, I would say, let's look at a building situation. Your business analyst would be more of your quantity surveyor. They're the ones that are going to break down the costs, the risks, all those factors that come into building. Whereas your business architect is more like your architect, where they are designing, planning, setting up, making it ready for use, and having that available from the very beginning of a project, but also afterwards. So creating the blueprints for the organization. And what's been happening over the years is that business analysts are being told to quantity survey a building that doesn't exist yet. They must gather all the requirements, and there's this big missing piece that goes, but what is the blueprint that I'm using? And then BAs are being told, oh, but now you must design this blueprint as well as doing all these requirements, so it gets real messy. And so if I was to use those, is to say, do you need a quantity surveyor who's going to give you all the details you need to make this building work? Or do you need an architect who's going to design it for you? So, or at least with you. So those are the two distinguishing differences in my mind.
I love that example, by the way. It was so clear. I was just imagining the building really when you were talking. That's awesome. So I've talked to a lot of business analysts who wish to transition their career to an architect position. So what are some of the areas and skill sets that they should be thinking of working on? Because I myself started I started as a business analyst and then transitioned to an architect. And that transition path was not easy because I was trying to figure out a lot of things. So for our readers and listeners, what are some of the things that you might want to advise on in terms of this transition path?
Well, I think there's some key characteristics that you need. Number one is you need to be a systems thinker. If you can't pull all the pieces together, like I was saying, if you're building a house, you need to know where the bathroom is, you need to know where the kitchen is, you need to know where all these components sit. And so an architect really needs to be able to think of the business as this entire building or even a city. And be able to pull all those different components together. So and not all people are system thinkers. And this is important because if you are a, kind of a detailed documenting BA, you may find this really, really challenging. So I do advise people, you first need to determine your own personality type and your skill set. Transitioning into the role is you have to fundamentally know the difference between a process and a capability. Because a capability is around what we do and a process is around how we do it. And I know a lot of BAs pop in and they think they can do architecture by designing a lot of processes. And it's just so far from the truth. So they need to have a solid education. This is a quite a intense career in terms of knowing what you need to do and knowing those blueprints that you're designing for your company. And so I just think that, and this is what happens in IT. We kind of, a new technology and a new way of doing things comes in and we get thrown into it. But this is where I always advise, now's a good time to get professional advice on what that role is and how it would work for you.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks for that. That was a very realistic answer. So what are some of the strategies for building like a baseline career benchmarking for assessing the current state and the target state goals?
For the individual?
Yeah, for the career. So if I'm a BA, here are some of the things I start with. I know I want to be an architect. So how do I start baselining my career as a business analyst to reach my target?
Sounds like a simple question, but I suppose it's a little bit tougher. Again, it's really going first into your skill set. And most BAs who actually go and decide to do business architecture ask me for a transition course. And we do have one, but I always advise against it, which is quite odd, because you cannot just transition into the role and try to retrofit the transition. You almost have to start from the beginning. And as you learn about architecture, you'll start going, oh, I know how to do that. I've done this before. But if you go in from a BA perspective and go, oh, this is what we did, so do you want me to do this again? Then you're sitting in a tough position where you're trying to understand the relevance of what you're doing in the future to what you're doing now. So if you're interested in the career, you have to study the profession. And then it will make sense to you after a while, but you don't want to try push a quantity surveyor into an architect role. You want to learn what architecture is first, and then see how you can use your experience as a quantity surveyor to really do a great job for the organization.
Awesome. Great. Thank you for that. And what are some of the opportunities and career path trends that is available for aspiring business analysts? So architecture is definitely one of them. What are some of the other typical paths that they transition into? Because there's no like direct paths, right? We don't have like a predefined structure. Analyst becomes so and so, but if there's any trends or typical paths that you see where analysts can transition into the next stage of their career, what would that be?
Well, there's quite a few branches that BAs can go into. And this is where I say you need to choose what your speciality is. So there are some people who go into cybersecurity. So you can imagine having requirements written correctly around cybersecurity would be a very helpful thing in the current economy that we're in. So that doesn't mean that they necessarily are cybersecurity experts, but when they go and discuss cybersecurity with, that particular SME, they can actually have that conversation. Data analytics is always big. So having insights, being able to do dashboards, present, those are really good. So having that data background is really good. And then I suppose also BAs looking to move more towards the engagement part. So we've got like 3 BA streams, such as design thinking, looking at running workshops, being able to pull out problems, root cause analysis, being able to work with people in those areas. So those are more senior type roles where you're a mentor, you're helping the business understand the pain points, what they're going through, or you specialize in requirements that particularly aren't well defined in our general working environments at the moment. But again, there's so much, as I'm sure you know, that you can explore.
Yep. And I think it's so dependent on every individual's strengths, right? To your point.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then you spoke about if an analyst wishes to transition into a business architect, the most important thing is get to know the discipline, study. My next question is, how important are the certifications and how impactful is to have a certification prior to entering that profession in terms of your career growth, and why is that?
Okay, so I would say there's multiple reasons, but I'm going to tell you what I think is the most important. It depends on where you are. So what are you trying to do? For instance, there are some countries that demand certification, like Canada, for instance. There's quite a big drive on having, if you start a new job, to be a certified BA or certified BArch. So if you are interested in the role, you might have to meet those expectations. Other countries less so in terms of, this is where you need to be and this is what you need to do. Maybe you need to repeat the question because I probably went off a little bit.
My question is, how important and impactful are certifications when you do a career transition?
Okay. So I certainly feel in BArch, so when you're looking at architecture, because it's new, you will have it when you have a certification, you provide your employer confidence that you're actually the right person. Now, BArch is quite an interesting field because people think this is enterprise architecture, and it is and it isn't. Business architecture is a profession. Now, I like to describe this. So when you're a BA, you can be working in an agile environment, or you can be working in a more traditional, everything's controlled by IT environment. You could be working, focusing only on process mapping. All right. So, but you're still a BA. So if you have a CBAP, you're still a BA. It doesn't matter what environment you're working in. It's the same with business architecture. You have the profession, which is what the guild provides, which is around the profession of business architecture. And then we discuss the different environments like enterprise architecture, which is a methodology that is being used. And so business architects are one of the roles that methodology uses, just like a BA is a role in agile. Well, sometimes it's product owner. So as you can see, you really need to understand the profession, and then you'll understand when you've been put into, let's say, an enterprise architectural team, what your role is and how that's going to work. And to have that certification means you've at least learned it. So I think for anyone who's going to a new job, because this is so new, it's good to get the certification, particularly in that role. But obviously people might think I'm biased, but every architect who's gone on training has said that that's been the best solution for them, because they now feel confident that they can go and challenge within the organization.
Totally. I second that thought. Yeah, absolutely. Well, that kind of ends all the questions I had on my mind. Thank you so much for taking time and sharing your insights, your experience with us. Really appreciate you coming on here.
Okay.
Thank you again.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Thank you.